Hey everyone and welcome back. Now in the previous video we created our first CloudFormation stack based on S3 template. However, the template was very simple and all it did was it created a simple S3 bucket. So what we'll do in today's video is we'll go much more further and we'll be speaking about three important configuration parameters. One is the resource properties, second is the update stack, and third is the delete stack. So let's begin our journey and let's understand each one of them. So the first thing that we will be discussing is the delete stack. Now a delete stack is a feature of CloudFormation which basically allows us to delete all the resources which were created from a single stack. Now let's take an example. You have a stack 1 for application A. Now what are the things that are involved within this stack? You have a load balancer, you have EC2 instances, you have a MySQL database, and you have a S3 bucket. Now let's assume that you have created each one of these manually. Now if you want to delete, or I would say if you want to terminate each of them, what you'll have to do, you'll have to go to EC2 console, you go and select the EC2 instances related to the application A, you terminate them. You go to the MySQL database, you find the right database, you terminate them, and so on. So currently there are just 4 resources, but there can be possibility where a single application can have 15 to 20 resources, and doing things manually, deleting things manually one by one is a big pain first, and second is there is a chance where you will do a mistake where you might terminate the resource of some different application instead of application A. And this is actually the real world example. I still remember in one of the companies that I have been working with, during that time a lot of things were manual, and one of the DevOps, he accidentally deleted the resource of an entire different application. And since then we actually decided to move towards the infrastructure as a code, because these manual mistakes might prove to be very not economical. So this is the delete stack. So let's begin and look into how this feature can be implemented. So I'll go to the CloudFormation, and in the earlier lecture we had created a packed demo resource. Now let's assume that we want to delete this specific resource. So what you do, you click on actions and you click on delete stack. I'll click on yes, delete, and it will go ahead and delete the entire stack. Now currently our stack is just S3. However, if you have a very big stack, it might be 15-20 resources, CloudFormation knows it created which resource and it will only delete the resource which it has created of a particular stack. So there is no chance of deleting some other application resource. That is the first part. And second part is that terminating resource is much more faster. You don't really have to hop into various consoles and terminate the resource manually. So this is about delete stack. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation and study about update stack. Now in the update stack, what it basically allows us to do is that it allows us to update configuration related to stack. So now let's assume that you have created these 4 resources. Now within the S3 bucket, you want to add a specific configuration. So let's assume you want to enable the versioning pertaining to this specific S3 bucket. So this is done with the help of update stack. So if you already have a stack created and you want to update certain configuration parameters related to the resource which are already created, you can do that with the help of update stack. So what we'll do is, since we have already deleted our resources, we will be creating our first resource yet again of type S3 bucket, and we'll look into how exactly the update stack would really look like. So I have a S3 bucket. If you'll see, this is the S3 bucket that we were writing. Now along with that, what we will do is we will specify the bucket name this time. Now in order to understand on how exactly can we write the bucket name, we have to go towards the AWS documentation and we'll select the AWS S3 bucket. Now if you go into the AWS S3 bucket, Here you will see that there are a lot of properties that we can define of type S3 bucket. So this is something that we had already seen earlier. Let me just revise it once more. So generally when you create a S3 bucket, I'll give a random name. There are lot of configuration parameters that you can give. So these are all the properties that you can define to the specific S3 bucket. And these properties you can actually even write it in the CloudFormation template itself. Great. Now one of the properties that you will see over here is the bucket name, where we have to specify the name of bucket. So what we'll do is we'll use these properties and we'll update our CloudFormation template. So let's begin writing. So we'll begin writing our first properties. Now the type of property is bucket name. So always remember that you have to follow the conventions which are given over here. You cannot really make any spelling mistakes. So that is very important part to remember. So bucket name, let me give it as my pack S3 demo 007. That's a quite interesting name. And I do the closing braces. I'll click on save. And as we have discussed, we should always validate our template. And I'll click on validate. So now you see it has given us one error. So why this error is basically, now you have defined a properties after the type. So what you have to do in JSON, you have to put a comma. So comma basically states that there is one more configuration parameter which is upcoming in the below lines. So I'll copy this template yet again and I'll click on validate JSON, and this time the JSON is validated successfully. Perfect. So what I'll do, I'll click on save and we'll go to our CloudFormation. We'll click on create a new stack. I'll browse. I'll do a next. So let's name this as packed bucket name. I'll click on next. You can ignore these as of now. I'll go ahead and click on next and I'll click on create. So this will go ahead and create a S3 bucket, and we know what is the bucket name that it will be creating. So let's just wait for a moment for the creation process to complete. Perfect. So now the creation process has completed. Now you know that the name of the S3 bucket will be my packed demo. So I'll copy this bucket name. I'll go to the S3 console. Let me refresh the page. And if you just sort by the date created, you will see that now you have a bucket name with my packs demo. So this is how you can define various properties associated with a S3 bucket. So what we'll do now is we'll look into how we can update the stack. So let's assume that you have already created a S3 bucket. However, there in the properties, if you'll see, a lot of things are disabled. Now you want to enable the versioning. So this is the feature that you want to enable now. Now in order to do that, again we'll go to the documentation. We'll look into what is the specific configuration value associated with versioning. So if you'll go a bit down, you will see there is a versioning configuration. So this is the specific value that we need to give. So I'll go to the S3 and I'll put a comma because now I'm going to add few more configuration parameters. So I'll put a versioning configuration over here, and now we have to click here. So whenever you go into documentation, there will be various properties. If you go to versioning configuration, this is a versioning configuration page. It will basically tell you what exactly this is all about, and within the type you select the Amazon S3 bucket versioning configuration. So this will basically tell you on how exactly you need to write your syntax. So this is the syntax that you have to type, which is of type status. So let's go to the S3 bucket. I'll open this up. I'll say status, and what should be the status is a question, and this would be the answer. If you go a bit down, there are two valid values for status. One is enable and second is suspended. So we'll click on enable. and we'll close the curly braces. Perfect. So this is our code. Let's quickly verify it in the JSON link so that we can be sure that everything seems to be perfect. And yes, it is a valid JSON. Now, what we have till now is we have a simple S3 bucket which does not have a versioning enabled. Now we want to enable the versioning. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and click on actions. We'll click on update stack. Now within the update stack, I'll select our fresh file of type S3. I'll click on next. Let's select next. And I'll click on update. So this will update the S3 bucket configuration and basically it will enable the versioning related configuration. Perfect. So the update is completed successfully. So now if you go into the S3 bucket and if I just refresh the page, let's sort by date created. I'll select the bucket name and within the versioning you see now the versioning is enabled. So this is how you can update your stack, and anyways if you want to delete you can always delete the stack accordingly. So this is it about the high level overview related to properties, update stack and delete stack. So this is it about today's video. So I hope you understood the basics on how you can write a CloudFormation template, what are the update as well as the deletion properties. Now one important thing that you must remember is that always follow the documentation. Documentation has each and every step, and even in today's video if you see what I used to do, I followed the documentation and within the documentation I found the properties and I used those property values within my template. And this is one of the ways in which you should be writing your CloudFormation template. So this is it. In the next video, what we'll be doing is we will be speaking about the deletion policies related to CloudFormation. So this is it. I hope this has been informative for you and I look forward to see you in the next video.